Cyberpunk 2077 just received yet another 15GB update. In this video, I'm going to break down what exactly you just downloaded, some of the fixes and changes coming to the game, and what actual improvements were made. As with this one, some of you may actually be pleasantly surprised with some of the things that were improved. So right off the bat, this is definitely one of the smaller ones despite the download size even being labeled as a hotfix update, not a full-on patch 1.2 with hundreds of changes. One of the first things that was addressed was actually another one of these achievement blocking bugs, or at least it seems like it was addressed. Data terms in Cyberpunk 2077 are those fast travel points, and this patch actually fixed the Metro Memorial Park data term right in the center of City Center. This seems to have returned its map marker and functionality, but also hypothetically allows you to actually get the frequent flyer achievement, which is an achievement for going to all of the various data terms. Many people had it at 149 out of 150, with the Metro Memorial Park one being the one they didn't unlock. And although it seems like that's the intended change with this, it doesn't actually seem like it fixed it for everyone, as initial reports of people who were on the cusp of this achievement don't actually have it unlocked even after going here after the update. So unfortunately, this could be another one of those issues where if you kind of unlocked it or went there and registered the unlock already, but it didn't tick over on the achievement, you might have kind of glitched it on your save. We saw a fix until the Until Death Do Us Part gig, which basically made it so you weren't actually able to click up to the apartment level of this quest. The whole quest literally takes place on the apartment level where you have to steal something, so this was a rather frustrating one that more or less made it so you couldn't do this gig at all without loading a previous save. The quest Epistrophe, is that even how you actually say that, has easily been one of the most bug quests in this game since release, and fortunately we got one more step in the right direction. There's this bug where you could actually get stuck in a garage, and that was addressed, except this is still not comprehensive. There are still bugs around this one where people go up to these cars. That's the whole point of the quest. You go up to some of these lost Delamine cabs, and you still don't get a phone call, or it doesn't actually register to the next stage of the quest. It's a real shame, because this is actually one of the best side quests in Cyberpunk overall. Unfortunately, due to patch 1.2, there was a new Takamura bug implemented. One of the fixes they implemented made it so he would just stand here instead of going to the next location. Fortunately, that has now been fixed, and he will teleport to the next location, and it seems like this does apply to people who did have this issue before. Like if on your current save he's stuck here, he will immediately teleport away. Although this may have led to an additional bug where Johnny Silverhand now just kind of sits on his car and doesn't do anything. And then the dialogue plays here, and then he's just left sitting on nothing for a short while. Not sure what's going on with this. So one that was finally addressed on a larger scale is NPC clothing clipping. This is one of those things that of course I can't show you in this video, but was one of the more famous bugs in Cyberpunk, where more or less sometimes you would see an NPC and parts of their body would just be clipping through their clothing. This seemed to happen for all of the body types in game, and you probably saw a variety of images showcasing this in the past. Unfortunately, this too doesn't seem like it's quite comprehensive, in the sense that although it seems largely fixed for NPCs, there are definitely still issues with some of the outfits you can apply to your own character, where after applying them you will see parts of your body sticking out of them. But some of the other big changes to come with this are around some of the performance or stability improvements coming to Cyberpunk. They say improved GPU performance of skinning and cloth rendering, as well as various memory management improvements, reducing the number of crashes and other optimizations. So I actually felt a bit of a difference with this one, at least on PC. I had some oddities with performance following patch 1.2, where at points it almost felt like performance was slightly lower than before, but now it does definitely feel like for certain instances, in particular when just driving around openly or even while in larger crowds, I actually am getting more FPS on my 3080 on my PC. The large crowd one in particular feels like I got a nice 5 to 10 FPS bump at times, while driving is definitely on the smaller scale. A couple of FPS here or there, mostly being around 5 FPS, and nothing really game changing, but it seems like other people are also having these slight FPS improvements. It's still definitely not perfect, but it's another little inch in the right direction. Well, that crowd improvement is definitely really nice. I feel like that one in particular I felt. Being able to walk around a big crowd like this without having major stutters or FPS issues does feel pretty refreshing. And we see a similar tale for consoles also. GPU and ESRAM optimizations and improvements on Xbox One, as well as memory management improvements on PlayStation 5. So I do not have a PlayStation 5 or even a PlayStation 4, but testing on my Xbox One X, things definitely feel somewhat better. Far from perfect, but for example, in combat, it feels like you still get that initial lag when you kind of walk into an area with a bunch of enemies, But once you actually engage in combat or take down an enemy or two, it feels like things are definitely bouncing back quite a bit more quickly, and driving overall still without a doubt drops under 30 FPS when you're going full open through big areas. but it feels like things aren't dropping quite as low, or things are recovering a bit more quickly when you get into some of the comment areas. And in particular, actually, the inventory screen felt quite a bit snappier for me. Granted, I don't have a particularly busy inventory on this Xbox character. With that said, there are still clear and evident FPS. I mean, just look at me walking up to this area. You can see my FPS is really going low. Or if it's not obvious from the video, I could certainly feel myself getting into the mid to low 20s, or that's what it felt like. And this is not even on a base Xbox One, but a Xbox One X. There are without a doubt still plentiful frame drops if you're just naturally playing this game. But even in some of these, I'm only fighting like 5 enemies. It's not all that crazy, and the streets of Night City are relatively bare. One odd issue that seems to be persisting with some of these patches, and I don't really know who's to blame, whether it's Steam or CDPR, is people running into problems with Steam patching of this game, in that a lot of times after downloading the update, you will have to verify the integrity of your game files, and it'll find a problem and download a couple of extra files. So if you play on Steam and you are having problems, try verifying the integrity of your game files. For whatever reason, this is just a recurrent thing with some of these updates. It doesn't seem super widespread, like it's not affecting 20% of players overall, but it is definitely there. You definitely see lots of reports of this or having problems around this whenever these updates go live. There's also the question as to why exactly is this patch so big for consoles. Another 15 gigabyte download versus on GOG it's only about 500 megabytes. This is simply due to the way this patching is done on consoles. Let's say there's a couple of lines of code change, you're going to have to download the entire full file. Re-downloading a lot of stuff you technically already have, but you need the whole file for those couple of lines. And it's worth noting, I see a lot of confusion around this. It's not normally making the game any bigger. Like, you're replacing old files. The game file size may slightly increase, but largely the game will still be the same 65 gigabytes on your hard drive. It's not like there's an extra 15 gigabytes on top of that 65. Also, this may give us a bit of an insight into CDPR's plans going forward with these patches, as now we have the third patch in a 2-week time frame. Patch 1.2 did come, then 2 weeks later we got patch 1.21, then 2 weeks after that we have 1.22. So perhaps in another 2 weeks we'll get maybe a larger patch or another hotfix like this one. I don't hate this. I actually kind of like the fairly regular patches getting people back into the game, especially when you're addressing some of those progress blocking bugs like the one they introduced with Takamura getting stuck there. But this also could be motivated by trying to get the game back on the PlayStation Store. More frequent patches like this are just showing a lot more activity with hotfixes, and maybe some minor performance improvements may motivate Sony to actually have the game come back up. Or even something I haven't seen discussed all that much is around E3. CDPR just did a Q&A with investors, and during this they mentioned how, with the next-gen upgrade for this game, they plan on having a bit of a larger marketing campaign. E3 is just a couple of months away now. We know Xbox will be there in some shape or form, and CDPR has typically been an Xbox conference for Cyberpunk. I could see their game plan being fixing things as much as humanly possible before E3, then at E3 have this cool trailer for the next-gen upgrades if you are planning to get a new console, but also maybe a bit of a teaser for some of the expansions, a look at some of the free DLCs, and all of this kind of kicking off that redemption arc for them. Having a big stage and a ton of eyes to be like, hey, our game is way better now, and here's all the cool stuff coming on the horizon where it'll be even better than it is now. With that said, there's still definitely quite a few things that need to be fixed. The Sweet Dreams quest is a big one that you always see people talking about. There's an NPC named Stefan that is just not spawning for some people, making this quest uncompletable for them. There's still some weirdness with facial animations and mirrors, which was introduced with patch 1.2. There's a whole spreadsheet of broken mods and perks. It's a bit outdated now as some of the cornerstone perks have been fixed, but there's still several things that just don't really work at all, or don't really work all that well, like the throwing knife perk. And even just recently, a modder found a problem in the game where after a certain point, you have this attribute attached to you where it makes it seem like you are being hacked, which makes it so enemy netrunners can't actually hack you at all. And even further, you know when they're like detecting your position, but then you kill the netrunner and then they're still detecting your position somehow? That's also a result of this bug. The mod fixes that, as well as adds in a variety of new hacks netrunners can use on you overall. Not to mention, we still haven't really gotten a lot of the quality and life improvements a lot of people are hoping for. So either way, that's a bit of an update and rundown as to what this patch does, and more or less what you can expect on the horizon from CDPR. I think they will be at E3. It seems like too big of an opportunity for that redemption arc campaign to start off for them to miss it. But that said, hopefully you guys found this one informative. As always, again, I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all next time.